My parents were great at making money. Now, that's very different from a financial strategy. And I talk about that publicly on my YouTube channel. My parents were burned by multiple advisors, and that's eventually why I became a financial advisor. Now, the sad thing to me is if my parents were properly educated, they would have been great savers. But no one really took the time to sit down and go over compound interest or the rule of 72 or why putting money into a 401k can be so valuable. And so they never really planned. And so they're working in their 70s. Luckily, they like what they do. But if it was up to them, they wouldn't be working to the same degree. So we view education as a really big role here at Root. Now, in our new series, Root Drops, you're about to hear from one of my amazing advisors, Stephen Murphy, who works at Root, who's taken on new clients. And you're going to get this insight from him in just a second on how he views education with his clients. Now, I don't just pick these topics at random. They're actually selected by myself when I go into our free community, the Root Collective. This, once again, is completely free. In the description of this episode, you can actually go and join if you're not already in there. That's how I pick what we're going to talk about. So look at my screen right now. This is a question that comes from Mike Van Driesen, who says under our thread of what I wish I knew earlier, he says, early education. I'll never understand why we don't educate our children in school on the basic principles of budgeting, power of finances. It's all about starting early. Parents basically don't do a great job either. Weird. It would make this retirement problem we have so much easier. So, a lot to unpack there. Let's go to our amazing advisor, Stephen, and gather some insights. Stephen, any thoughts here?
Hey, Mike, great question. I think I would say I love how open-ended it is. For many questions we get, it's a relatively straightforward answer. I think can be taken 1,000 different ways, and there's 1,000 different great answers. My wife is a teacher, my mother's a teacher, so having that educational piece in my life personally is really something near and dear to my heart. It's something I really try and apply with all my clients. You mentioned the education system, but also parents. I have a 7-month-old daughter, so I'm trying already. I have the ABCs of economics. It usually puts her to sleep for a nap, so I think we're still a little ways away. But when I read this question, I had a couple of things come to mind, and I'd love to share them with you. So, first one, you even mentioned this is budgeting. Now, there's a lot of different ways you can go about budgeting, and I'm not going to go too much into the details of what those look like. My encouragement to you would just be overall, at least have an idea of where you're spending and you're ensuring that you're spending less than you're making. That's a relatively easy concept to pass on to children, to grandchildren, and you can do a lot of budgeting exercises with them to help demonstrate that. There's a lot of great ideas online. Perhaps when they get older, something that happened with me personally, and I really am grateful for this experience, is my parents got me a credit card when I was a teenager. And it was really eye-opening for me to, granted, I wasn't the one paying the credit card statement, but to actually see where the spending was just mind-blowing. So I think the younger you can really demonstrate that, the obviously most kids, most teenagers don't have an income, but the idea of spending less than you make, really, there's a lot you can do on that front to give them a lot of real-world experience. I think the second point that came to mind was the power of compound interest. I think you touched on this again as well. There's a lot of great examples. You could even Google the example that comes to mind for me personally is the example of Billy and Sally. Sally invests at a very early age and stops contributing to her accounts at a relatively young age. Billy, on the other hand, starts investing later in life, contributes a lot more money to his investments, and at the same age down the road, Billy has less than Sally. So really the power of compound interest, I believe it was Einstein, I'm probably wrong with that, but Einstein says the eighth wonder of the world is the compound interest. And I think that would take me to my third point. And it's really kind of a hybrid between the two. It's a good way of understanding your budget and making sure that you're not overspending, but also trying to conceptualize the power of compound interest. I heard this in high school and it stuck with me even till this day, is everything that you want to buy, multiply it by 10. Now, obviously, we don't know what the rate of returns will be. We don't know how long you're investing, but it's a good way to say, this is a $10 item. Do I really need this? Or would I prefer $100 down the road? And there's no right or wrong answer for some things. The answer is yes, I certainly would rather have the $10 item now. But really, personally, put into perspective of, obviously you can't just multiply by anything by 10 and say that's the power of compound interest, but it does give a perspective of, do I really want to spend this now, or would I rather have a larger sum of money down the road? So those are the three things that come to mind. You can ask ChatGPT. I'm sure there's a million different things that you could teach kids and grandkids, but at least on my front, what I'm doing personally in my life with my daughter, with family members, those are some things that came to mind.
Okay, guys, here's what I think is really happening. I think when Steven was 13 and he had his credit card, I think he was buying that beard shampoo because there's no other way you get a beard that looks that good. Now, in all seriousness, I really like that multiply by 10 rule. That's something that you might go, that's a takeaway that maybe I've always kind of thought about. Do I need this? But if I really take it to the next level, if I'm really more intentional, maybe that will shift how I think about purchases. Or you know what? Maybe that whole concept of compound interest, I've never taken the time to sit down and speak to my child about it. So maybe that's on me. Part of our job as an advisor is to be transparent and help you get the most life out of your money, which sometimes starts with education. Sometimes it starts with putting a nephew or a niece to sleep with the Roth conversion podcast. But in all seriousness, guys, this is what we love to do. If you resonated with this episode and you go, wow, Steven not only seems like a really cool and inviting guy, but the type of person who would listen to me, who would partner with me, who I think my spouse might actually really resonate with. Steven is taking new clients and he loves what he gets to do, which is help people who want to optimize what they've worked so hard for. If you go to rootfinancial.com, in the upper right, you'll see a little button that says click here to see if you're a fit. If you click on that, you'll be prompted to answer a few questions. And if it makes sense, we can then have that conversation. My only ask, because all of our content is free right here on YouTube, is please like this video if you found it helpful. Please comment below if there's something you learned, some takeaway. Multiply by 10. Where do I go to get the shampoo for the beard that Steven uses? What it is that really is going to make you have an amazing retirement. Please, we want all your thoughts. We read the comments. It's really fun for us. It allows us to make these videos. We get more motivated to do so. And then finally, number 3, it's way more fun to retire early with friends, with family. It is also fun to brag and say, yeah, I retired early. I now don't have to commute, or I don't have to worry about deadlines. But that lasts for a few months. And then you start to go, wow, what if I could retire early and have people to do it with? So with that being said, we do all of this for you guys. We love doing it. Hope you enjoyed this episode, Root Drops with Steven Murphy. Thanks, guys.